and now if I don't remove it, this reminder that History of Ninja Steel Part 1 is up on YouTube is going to just sit there the entire time I'm filming this video. I'll probably close that in a second. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Tatooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review. Sorry if the release schedule on these videos has been a little bit wonky lately. Sometimes I just feel like I never have enough time to work on them. And funny enough, time just so happens to be what we're discussing today. Let's take a look at the third episode, How Time Flies. Emperor Gorganus is still irritated with how long it's taking to defeat the Galactic Sentinels and Nimbar. I know, right? It's been 3 whole weeks. Possibly really just 3 whole days. Lechner tells him that it's only a matter of time, and that gives him an idea. Coincidental inspiration. You see, human lives are ruled by time. They have their catch of the day, flavor of the week, man of the year, and sale of the century. That is actually Gorganus' line, and I think it's really clever. Gorganus is sending the Sorcerer, who has the ability to manipulate time, and is a proud graduate of the Dino Charge School of Monster Naming. Although, to be honest, he kind of looks like the Silver Skull. Maybe a relative of his, and that's how he found out about this show. He does have a cool, distorted laugh, though. Laurie is at the cafe studying as 2 girls that were talking to her get up and leave. Drew walks over, and Laurie says the girls had seen them, her and Drew, talking at school and was asking Laurie if they were friends, which she of course denied. Drew tells her it would be nice if she ordered something, and she does so in French, since she's studying for a French test. Drew had said she'd be back with Laurie's coffee in a flash, and that happens literally, Drew returning the second that Laurie looks up. Drew warns her that the coffee is hot, but in fact it is now ice cold. As Drew goes to remake it, she runs into Gordon, who wanted to tell her that the donut he ordered is completely stale. She says that's impossible, as the donuts are made fresh every morning. Gordon is at the cafe a little bit earlier than usual because he's there for an appointment with his mother. You see, both of them are so busy that they actually schedule out time in order to see each other and spend quality time. Gordon doesn't actually see the point, seeing as they do already see each other at home. His mother enters and Laurie refers to her as Mayor Henley. You know, when these shows have fake cities, like Angel Grove for example, them portraying political figures doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. But in this case, Gordon's mother is the mayor of Beverly Hills. And coincidentally, I checked, and in 1994, the mayor of Beverly Hills was a woman, but her name was Vicki Reynolds. She orders a cappuccino and sits down for this important family time, and then immediately stands back up saying that it was lovely and they should do it again soon. Drew wonders where she's going since she just ordered, and that makes me wonder why she wasn't upset that her order apparently never showed up. Gordon isn't fazed by this, though. It frees up his schedule for more important things. Sheesh. He checks that electronic date book to see what his next appointment is, and realizes that it is actually 1 hour later. Then Swinton just appears, and I'm not saying it's a break in the show's writing or anything, this is intentional this time, nobody having seen him enter, and him apparently not really being upset that he entered and nobody acknowledged him. Anyway, he notices that Laurie is studying French and says something to her in French, but she's still really rusty. But after he explains it, she fires off a string of perfect French, like she'd been studying it for years. Swinton gets up to use the bathroom, but stops on the stairs, turns around, and sees the conversation that he just took place in repeat itself over again. He then sees himself get up to use the bathroom, and runs into himself on the stairs. Again, oddly, nobody seems freaked out about this, neither of the 2 versions of them, just saying, "excuse me," and moving on past. Swinton returns to the chair, the others thinking that he just got up to use the bathroom and immediately came right back. But he points to the stairs and they turn and see the version of him that turned back to listen to the conversation. Swinton says, impenetrability, which at first made no sense because as far as I knew, that term just referred to something that could not be pierced by another object. But it turns out impenetrability does have more of a metaphysical meaning, though it's really just a general sense of the same definition, the idea that two objects cannot occupy the exact same point in space. However, I don't think they really applied the idea quite properly. You see, Swinton theorizes that since two of him cannot occupy the same point in space-time, obviously something's wrong with the flow of time. However, this idea seems a bit more general than that, basically just saying that two different objects can't be in the same literal spot. Not that two of the same object can't be in the same general place. Still, though, it's another example of the show going a little bit deeper than you might expect it to. Gordon says time manipulation is impossible. This coming from a guy who transforms into a gigantic spandex-clad warrior to fight monsters, usually defeating them by combining with 3 other warriors to create a big silver knight. Swinton decides that the best way to prove that something is going on is to have everybody check their watches. Drew says that her watch is actually busted and she just wears it for decoration. How very hipster of her. But the other 3 all have significantly different times on their watches. The lights in the cafe then flash on and off for a second, which is something some businesses do or did to indicate to their customers that they were getting ready to close. You don't really see it much anymore. It is actually kind of rude, but hey, it's something that happened. Drew says that the day has flown by, but Swinton points out that that is actually literally the case. He says that he needs a sundial, so he can measure the differences between solar time and clock time. Drew, of course, just so happens to have one in her backyard, and we're just going to pretend that what Swinton just said makes any kind of sense. At Drew's house, which, thinking about it, may actually be the only house set that they have, though we'll see, Swinton types on a big, chunky laptop that was probably pretty top of the line at the time. I wasn't even really aware that laptops were a thing in 1994. Theorizing that a tear in the 4th dimension could lead to disruptions in time. Hey, better a tear in the 4th dimension than in the 4th wall, am I right? Drew's mother comes by, pushing a Christmas tree up to the house. Drew plays up the whole, "These aren't my friends, it's a study group," before realizing that it's nowhere near Christmas. Later in the scene, Gordon mentions that it's May. Drew's mom... the show gets a little cheesecake here, let's put it that way, as she says that these strapping young men can help decorate the tree, leaning forward to expose some rather significant cleavage as she says that before heading inside. The team finally puts together that Gorganis may be up to something, and the second they do, their tattoos flash. A portal opens behind the table, which is weird because the portal is usually stage right of the table, but it closes right away. Although actually, as Swinton points out, it's not that it closed quickly, it's that their timescape has been sped up. Now, they don't have a way to get to Nimbar. After a really unnecessary scene, to be honest, that only really establishes that Nimbar has realized what's going on, we head back to Drew's house, where somebody has decorated the Christmas tree and they talk about what to do. This scene actually got really irritating to watch as they worked in this comedic thing where Drew and Laurie would keep asking Swinton what they should do next, but Gordon would pipe up and say that he has all the exact same ideas Swinton is and that he's just as smart as Swinton is. Finally fed up with his objections, Swinton asks Gordon what he thinks they should do. Swinton had pointed out that due to the accelerated timescape, they are aging more rapidly, and Gordon points out that Swinton is the youngest, so any effects of advanced aging would take the longest to affect him. The portal only stays open long enough for one person to go through, so Swinton will be the one that goes and talks to Nimbar. And as it turns out, that was actually Swinton's plan. He says he'll send another portal for them the day after tomorrow, which with the accelerated timescale is probably in like 5 minutes. Nimbar had figured out that Swinton would be the one to come to talk to him, and Swinton says that they had figured out that they'll need the entire team for this. Not exactly. I think there's like one line about how one Sentinel may not possibly be enough, but it's not like anything that they pieced together with the available evidence. Anyway, neither Nimbar nor Swinton has an idea on what to do next. Swinton sees that all forms of time are racing out of control, and the only real idea he can come up with is to send a portal to the others, keeping it open as long as possible, and hoping they make it through. The other Sentinels have apparently worn the same clothing for 3 days now as they await the portal to arrive, Gordon bragging about how smart he is. The portal appears and Nimbar seems to be able to hold it open just long enough for all 3 to get through. Apparently they needed to fill a few more seconds in the episode though, as we once again see the trippy portal visualization, which is something Drew says that she can't get used to. When they arrive, they're all tired. As it turns out, technically speaking, they've also been awake for 3 consecutive days. Nimbar explains to the Sentinels that it's the Sorcerer doing this, and here we go again. Gordon says, "The Sorcerer, he's trouble. What if we can't beat him this time? You've never fought him before!" I don't get if this is just some bad ordering of story, or just some implication that Gorganis is sending monsters far more often than we're seeing, just resurrecting and resending monsters on a regular basis. It really feels like just a cheap excuse for the Sentinels to be concerned about a giant monster the first time they see it, without the idea that they would really understand it, because this is all alien stuff and beyond them. However, the giant monster part seems like more than enough of a reason to be concerned. The team chit-chats a bit about how time is moving differently and they're not going to be teenagers anymore, before Nimbar tells them to get a friggin' move on and transform. Have I mentioned that I'm really loving Nimbar? The transformation call is done live and thus lacks energy again, although in this case I do suppose that they are tired. The team beams in, remarking about how refreshed and energized they feel. It then fades to black for a commercial. Great scene. Apollo jumps, which the show then applies slow motion and that half-frame jumping motion to, but then he just lands. The scene kind of goes on like this, cutting between full motion and half-frame jerky motion. The Sorcerer dodges all of their attacks and then starts throwing some sparkles, which starts messing with the seasons. It snows in winter, which really is messing with the seasons, because snow in the Los Angeles area in winter is incredibly rare. The last time it happened was in winter of 2014. Then it gets really hot for the summer, and then the seasons start conflicting with each other. As a third original song besides the theme song plays, the team summons their weapons and fires at the monster, but he blocks all of their beams and teleports behind them, blasting them. For some reason, they summon their weapons a second time, just reusing footage to fill time, I'm guessing, and then there's no effect. They form Nitron. And by the by, do you remember when Nimbar said that Nitron's energy is limited? The Sorcerer vanishes back and forth around Nitron, dodging and shifting, and actually making this fight almost interesting. A lot better than the last one. They seem to kind of just barely catch him with a blast, like maybe on the ankle, letting Nitron do what could be called its first finishing move. It fires a beam into the sky above the creature, catching the creature in a ray of circular light, which holds it in place for a series of blasts. That Nitron victory pose has the nighttime cityscape background behind it this time, reflecting the change in scenery. However, it's pretty badly obviously green screened. This time we officially completely see that Gorganis has brought the creature back to the station as it stands before him as he says it failed. He teleports it back into the storage container for reuse later, when the Sentinels will obviously say that they've never seen it before. The team returns to Nimbar's cave, congratulating Swinton for the success of his plan. Seems a touch overblown, but okay. He went through a portal and then held open another one long enough for the rest of them to arrive. According to Swinton's watch, the team has been gone for a full year, but Nimbar tells them to relax. Once the Sorcerer was defeated, time on Earth returned to normal. But wait, what does normal mean? Does everything that happened in the episode happen? Did they go back to the point that the Sorcerer first arrived, undoing things like Gordon meeting with his mom? Lots of questions that aren't really answered. Back at the cafe, the coffee really is hot, and Laurie still has a French test. Gordon has arrived even earlier than usual, wanting to be sure to be on time for his mommy appointment. You see, he now has an extra held value for the meaning of time, especially time spent with family. Weirdly, this whole incident seems to have repaired Drew's watch. She asks the others what time they have, and it is 4 o'clock, 4:15, and 3:45. Drew says, "You don't think?" They look at each other worryingly, and the episode ends! Well, the episode is over now, so I guess it's time to read the signs! Episode 3, How Time Flies. Pros: creative ways of demonstrating the time shifts, a very subtle moral, and improvement with Nitron. Cons: irritating dialogue, lack of creativity in the main battle, and inconsistencies recognizing monsters. I've tried to do this for 2 episodes now, but the third finally accomplished it. How Time Flies gets 4 signs out of 5. This show is a great demonstration of having to be creative while on a budget. Other shows may have just suddenly put one of the actors in old person makeup, or replaced them with a child for a scene, to demonstrate that wonkiness, or as Drew would say, hinkiness, with time. Here, we get subtle but very creative notes, like suddenly cold coffee, or a person showing up for a meeting and then immediately leaving like nothing was wrong. I almost thought that this episode didn't teach any kind of lesson, but right at the end we do get Gordon's little speech, which Drew refers to as such, about the value of spending time with family. It was a nice little lesson that wasn't really all that relevant to the plot, but just enough to link it into the story. Very nicely done. And as I said, last time I absolutely hated the Nitron fight, and this time was a significant improvement. The monster actually dodges and blocks, and it's not just over in 5 seconds. There's a little tiny bit of strategy involved, and we even get something that resembles a finishing move. It feels like they were kind of stretching their legs with how long and complicated the Nitron sequence could be, and I for one appreciated it. However, this episode gets really chatty, jumping back and forth between a lot of people that are just talking, especially in the middle. That scene with Gordon insisting that he's just as smart as Swinton is was really hard to watch and really annoying. And I actually ended up pausing the episode just to say, "Shut up, Gordon!" which is something I haven't done since Super Ninja Steel. What was gained with Nitron was lost with the Sentinels. They kick a bit, summon weapons, blast the monster, summon the same weapons again to reuse the footage, and then form Nitron. I wish it didn't feel like we had to choose between a good main battle and a good Nitron battle. And the whole "that monster again" thing is already getting really irritating. Early on, Emperor Gorganis establishes the idea of reusing his monsters. And minor spoilers here, but I checked, and over these 40 episodes, there's only about 12 unique monsters used, so we're going to see reused monsters. I was totally game with them establishing that, and it was perfectly fine, and I was like, alright, we're gonna get reused monsters. I was expecting that to be mentioned somewhere down the road. We're still spending time on the initial plot details, like people wondering why the Sentinels are talking to each other at school, but they've apparently fought each of these last 2 monsters at least a second time each. It just feels inconsistent and makes me worry that we're going to have multiple episodes that it'll feel like can be placed anywhere in the season and they just weren't ordered properly. But overall, I really did enjoy this episode. It was quick and easy fun, a nice little messing with time story that kind of reminded me of Timescape from Star Trek The Next Generation. And by the way, I made sure to check, All 7 seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation aired before Tatooed Teenage Alien Fighters aired in 1994, so they could have taken inspiration from any of that, and it's starting to become a recurring theme. We got our first taste of the cheesecake in this episode, reflecting the slightly older audience of the show once again. So let's see if we're in store for some more cleavage by taking a peek at the 4th episode, Switch. Dude! So, the Galactic Sentinels accidentally switched genders, changing bodies and lives during their fight with Voldek. Whoa, that's kind of weird, man. I have to agree with my unintentionally, vaguely 90s kid-sounding announcer. This is setting up to be a weird one. Anyway, that's going to do it for another Tatooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode review. Thank you, heroes, so much, as always, for watching. Let me know what you thought about this episode and my review of it down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to smack that thumbs up button and let me know that you enjoyed this video. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel to see all of my videos, including these Tatooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills episode reviews, as well as my comic reviews, my vlogs, any other content I have coming out. Hit the bell, get subscribed. And if you'd like to lend any financial support to my channel, you can head over to ko-fi.com/OrangeRangerVideos. There you can donate me a coffee set at $3 a piece. I greatly appreciate any of those that show up. Until next time, heroes, may the power portals protect you. Laurie is at the coffee shop studying for a test. A French test? Just studying. Immediately take place over again. However, I don't really think they applied the... However, I don't really think they applied the... Apollo jumps, which... However, this episode gets real chatty in the middle, and